Welcome to the series on microphones. Before we get started, as in with some of my videos, and a lot of times, is that there are a lot of issues that are directly related to the microphone that you may want to have a little bit better understanding of to help you in your comprehension of the concepts we're talking about and application. And microphones are a huge one. So I've made a bunch of videos that I think you probably should go back and take a look at. The first one is the equal loudness contour, phase, complex polar waveforms, noise and distortion, sound sculpting, harmonics, timbre, harmonic distortion, non-harmonics, timbre of instruments. There's some here that are on spectral content shaping that have a lot to do with equalization. There's another one here. There's two on saturation that will be very pertinent. Saturation with distortion, saturation with noise, dynamic range reduction for reduction, using those pieces of equipment for reduction or coloration. That can be very huge. Stereo field can be another one. There's another series here on signal flow, can be very pertinent. Learning audio engineering, I did a series on that that was hopefully just going to open the door to a lot of things for you to understand a lot of more complex concepts, in a simple way. There's a whole series on acoustics here that would be very pertinent. There's a short series on basic music theory and structure. And there's some other ones, on MIDI and some synthesizers that I'm not sure how pertinent those would be. But the previous ones would be very pertinent in you to be able to understand your microphones and what's going on there much better. There's also 2 more videos on this channel, one on analog signals and one on digital signals. And those can be definitely a huge, help in you understanding what's happening in the microphone. So before you get started, I know you're all chomping at the bit to understand microphones, or hope that somebody finally can explain it in a way that you can understand, but I suggest you go back and watch those videos, and it might seem like a lot, but by the time you get done with those, when you start approaching this video series, that you're going to have a much better understanding of some of the foundations of sound, some of the structures, a little bit of music theory that you can apply to things we might talk about, some basic electronics and don't worry, there's no math there unless you really want to go deep. Just some basic understandings. Acoustics, acoustics are a huge thing when you're dealing with microphones, and acoustical responses and frequency responses and all kinds of things like that. So I really do recommend you go back and watch those series. And I guarantee you by the time you get done with them that you might have to watch a few of them a couple times to really get the concept of what's going on. And hopefully I've explained them well enough to where you shouldn't have to. And so that when you come into the series on microphones, that a lot of these concepts we're dealing with, that, you've got a real good foundation to approach all the things we're talking about and the applications of the things we're talking about, so that you can connect those two things very well, so that, we're not just dealing with the concept of the microphone, we're dealing with the concept of the microphone and all these other concepts that are directly related to capture, and processing of that signal, and not just the microphone itself, but all the things that are, as far as the sound, the capture of it, what it's doing to the signal as it goes in, as it leaves the microphone, goes into the cable or wherever, that all those things that are very much directly related to that, you've got a good understanding of that, and you will be surprised that a lot of the concepts we talk about will be much clearer and easier for you to understand. So I really recommend you do that, and let's take a look at microphones. Alright, now you should have a much better understanding of what's going on with sound, and a whole lot of other concepts are going to be very much directly related to what we're talking about. So welcome to the series on microphones. The first thing we want to do is we want to talk about what is a microphone. It's a transducer. And so, a transducer, basically what does a transducer do? A transducer converts one form of energy into another form of energy. And in the transducer that we're talking about in a microphone, that more than likely is trying to convert audio signals to electrical signals. And it's, that's a very simple concept. On outward appearance, that's what we're looking at. We may get into some other things as we go along, but from the beginning, that's what we're going to think we're looking at. So basically, we're trying to look at, we've got some kind of signal or sound that we're trying to capture with this transducer that's going to convert it into an electrical signal. And, in some microphones and in some, situations, it might be converting it into a digital signal, or it might go from electrical into digital, or it might go from digital into electric. I don't know, what things that we might run into here, but those possibilities can happen. So hopefully you've watched those videos that I've pointed out. And that's a real basic concept. We want to keep that as simple in our mind as possible, that we're dealing with the transducer, that is the microphone, that is just going to convert energy from one form into another. And in this case, more than likely, we're talking about an audio signal that is an analogous signal into an electrical analogous signal. And we may be dealing with some digital signals that are discrete time and not analogous. So with that understanding, we'll go back and take a look at microphones. Okay, so we understand the basic concept of a transducer and basically what that's supposed to do. So, all microphones are obviously not the same. So, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with like dynamic microphones that are electromagnetic induction. We're dealing with condenser microphones that are capacitance change. We're dealing with piezoelectric microphones and in piezoelectricity. And there are lots of different microphones. Lots. If you look around, there are a ton of different microphones. So, we're going to try to take a look at as many as we can, and so that we can get an understanding of, what different microphones there are and what their functions are. All right, so when we first look at microphones, and we just want to pull up some pictures of microphones and look around, what do we find? Lots of different microphones. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of microphones. Okay, so what's the first thing that we're going to understand? The first thing that we're going to definitely understand is that there's some reason why they got all these microphones. Now, which microphone do you need? Well, it's pretty obvious from just looking at the microphone selection that, it's not that simple, because otherwise there would be like 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 different microphones out there, and that would be it, because they would all do the same thing, right? So, well, obviously that isn't happening, or, they want us to think they have something that's new and improved upon everybody else's microphone. So since we probably don't have the budget to buy everybody's microphone, then maybe we want to have a little bit better understanding of what those microphones do, so that we can make some informed decisions about, why we want to get Bob's microphone or Jimmy's microphone, correct? All right, so the first thing that we understand, and probably from the videos that you've already watched, is that what's it do? Well, the first thing the microphone's trying to do, it's trying to capture the timbres. The timbres of whatever sound you're making. It's trying to capture the acoustics, possibly, unless you're in an antioch chamber, of the environment. It's trying to capture the impulse responses, the frequency responses, and the volume dynamics. That's pretty simple, right? We won't get really in depth with that, but that's just kind of a basic outline of what it's trying to capture, right? And we know it's a transducer, so then it's trying to put that into some other type of electrical signal or digital signal. So what is the heck with all these microphones? You got all these microphones, and they're all supposed to do the same thing. Well, gee, now I went back and watched some videos, and I've seen a bunch of videos about why you'd want to buy Bob's microphone or Jimmy's microphone, or why Timmy does his, drum toms with that microphone, or why Jimmy recorded, Frank Sinatra with that microphone, or this other guy records Whitney Houston with that microphone. Because of why? Well, there was a lot of reasons, but it sounds to me like you're going to need a whole lot of microphones. And if you don't understand what's going on there, the chances are you being able to, get those captures as well as they're talking about, or, with that type of meticulous care, ain't very good. And plus, the same guy might record Whitney Houston with 3 or 4 different microphones, 3 or 4 different people, I should say, will record her with different microphones because that's their personal preference, I guess. So, well, that's no help. I can't have Jimmy come over to my house every time I'm going to record somebody, to see what his preference is. So maybe I need to understand what the microphone does a little better. So how are we going to go about doing this? Well, the best thing to do, as far as I can tell, is that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to go back to microphones, and we're going to have to actually get into what they do. So, this series, we might dig a little bit deep into microphones. And I hope, as in all my series, that, by the time we get done, if you didn't get a direct answer to what you were needing to have an answer to, that it's giving you some really good direction so that your questions are much finely targeted to get some really good answers for what your, for the needs that you have, to get good answers so that you can make good decisions about, whatever you're doing with microphones or what you need to understand. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the basic microphones, and we're going to really dig into them deep about what their basic concepts are, and all the basic concepts and how they're built into larger complexities to that instrument that we need to use. So that, in all of them, and then maybe some other ones also that, aren't very normal or, everyday use, because there are some specific applications. And it's very obvious that you might be able to buy, a couple microphones for very specific applications that can really do a lot for your production. But we really need to do that, because once we understand that, with the basic concepts that we understand from sound and all the videos you've watched already, that, we need to have a better understanding of the actual basic functionality of those instruments so that, we can really understand how important that microphone's going to be to our capture, so that we can make some really good decisions about how we use that microphone, where we use that microphone, and why to use that type of microphone. And that way that all of our decisions based around that instrument are informed and, have very good foundations, that we've based our conclusions from for using that instrument, rather than watching another video that Bob made about why you want to buy this new Shure microphone, or, the other microphone, or the other microphone and the other microphone, and then, that's, that obviously isn't going to get us anywhere to what we need to do, that we need to be able to look at this microphone and say, I'm buying this microphone because of all the properties that we're going to discuss in this video series, and I know it's going to do what I need to do well, because that's the way that microphone functions. Now, that's basically what we're going to do. So it might be a little bit in depth. One thing I want to, we're probably going to get to at the end of this series, is that nowadays they're starting to come out with microphones that do a real clean capture, and they'll have like, some kind of, it'll have one microphone that comes with a package, and then they'll have like these, things that it'll emulate this microphone or that microphone or that microphone. Well, if you've went back and watched that whole series and all those series I told you to, that you're going to come to a real quick understanding is that basically, if you can get a microphone that's got as clean a capture as possible, that you can shape all those things, the impulse response, the frequency responses, all that, help, the saturations and distortions, and anything else that might characterize that microphone, you can shape inside the DAW. Does that make sense? But it takes some understanding to do that. And it's why a lot of people don't, but hopefully by the time the series is done that you will. And that your microphone is being purchased for a couple different reasons, so that it's going to capture the way you want it to, in the environment that you want it to, and where to use it and how to use it, and also that whether or not how much work you want to do on the audio after the capture is done, with a very informed understanding of what work you might do to what that microphone and that type of microphone captures to begin with. So with that said, let's get started on this series. So welcome to the series on microphones.